never imagined that a single moment could change everything. Her name was Meera, and for years, I believed in her with a certainty that left no room for doubt. We had built a life together that looked seamless from the outside, shared routines, laughter that felt effortless, the kind of quiet intimacy that people envied without understanding. I trusted her completely, leaving my heart and my vulnerabilities exposed, thinking that love itself was a guarantee. That belief shattered the moment I saw her betrayal. It happened on an ordinary evening. I had come home early from work, hoping to surprise her with dinner. The house was quiet, the way it always was when she worked late. But something felt off. Her phone buzzed on the counter, a soft vibration that should have gone unnoticed. I reached for it, intending to move it aside, when a message preview flashed across the screen. My stomach tightened as I read it. The words were intimate, secret, unmistakably meant for someone else. I froze. The room, the familiar furniture, her laugh echoing from some memory, all of it seemed suspended in a sudden, unnatural silence. At first, I couldn't believe what I had seen. Denial was immediate. Maybe it was a mistake, an old conversation accidentally sent, something that could be explained. I told myself stories to keep panic at bay, but the unease in my chest refused to leave. I watched her that night with a new lens, subtle and cautious. I noticed the little things I had ignored before, the way she hid her phone when I entered a room, the vague explanations for late nights, the sudden defensiveness over seemingly small matters. Each observation chipped away at the trust I had taken for granted. By the end of the week, I could no longer pretend. The truth had revealed itself. Meera had been living a lie, and I had been blind to it. Anger surged, raw and unrelenting. My first instinct was confrontation, loud, immediate, destructive, but I paused. I realized that acting in the heat of emotion would only give her the power to manipulate the situation, to perform remorse or charm as she had done countless times before. I needed patience. I needed a plan. If betrayal was a storm, I would meet it with calm precision rather than reckless fury. I began collecting evidence quietly. Dates, messages, phone records, subtle discrepancies. I documented everything. My notebook became my anchor, a ledger of truth in a sea of lies. While I compiled proof, I also rebuilt myself. I returned to routines I had abandoned, started running in the mornings, reconnected with friends, and threw myself into work. The pain of betrayal, I discovered, could be channeled into something productive: clarity, vigilance, and self-reclamation. I observed her for weeks, letting her believe that I remained unaware. I watched the small arrogance of someone who thinks their deception is invisible. She smiled at me, joked, hugged me, and continued her carefully orchestrated charade, never suspecting that every detail was being cataloged. The patience it required was difficult, painful even, but necessary. I wanted her downfall to be built not on impulse, but on inevitability. The day I decided to act, I created an ordinary setting for an extraordinary revelation. I invited her to dinner at home, cooking the meal she loved and setting the table with care. The apartment smelled familiar and comforting, a stark contrast to the storm that was about to unfold. When she arrived, radiant and confident, I realized how ordinary betrayal often is. It hides in routines, in laughter, in the mundane moments we take for granted. I slid the notebook across the table. Her smile faltered, almost imperceptibly. She laughed softly at first, as if to dismiss the significance, but I didn't speak. I opened it and began reading aloud, calmly and deliberately, the facts she could not deny: dates, messages, times, receipts. The ledger of truth, simple and unembellished, filled the room. Her composed demeanor began to crack. Panic flickered in her eyes, then anger, then desperation. She tried every tactic she had used before: charm, denial, deflection. She begged me to believe her, to forgive her, to understand. But the evidence was unassailable. Every attempt to rewrite the narrative failed, because it rested against a foundation of irrefutable facts. Her lies, meticulously hidden, had been exposed not by rage, but by patience, observation, and careful planning. I watched as the weight of her actions pressed down, slowly, inevitably, until the realization was inescapable. She could no longer control the story. I did not yell. I did not cry. I did not humiliate her publicly. My satisfaction was quiet, deliberate, and complete. The power she once held through deception had shifted. I had reclaimed my life, my dignity, and my sense of reality. Her betrayal had been turned into clarity, and in that clarity, I found a strange form of peace. In the days that followed, I set boundaries that could not be crossed. I withdrew the emotional space she had relied upon to continue her deceit. I limited contact, rebuilt my personal routines, and focused on the life I deserved. She tried to charm and manipulate, to apologize and plead, but I remained steady. My world had been reshaped by truth, and there was no room for further manipulation. The revenge, I realized, was not in hurting her, but in reclaiming what she had tried to steal. My trust, my peace, my identity. I had loved deeply, been deceived thoroughly, and yet emerged stronger, wiser, and more self-assured. Betrayal is a storm, but it also reveals what is essential: strength, clarity, and the resilience to rebuild. Months later, our relationship ended formally, quietly, without spectacle. We divided what needed to be divided, arranged logistics, and spoke with honesty for the first time. The moment I saw her betrayal remained a scar, a turning point, but it no longer hurt the way it did at first. Instead, it reminded me of something vital: that pain can be a teacher, and betrayal can be transformed into strength. The moment I saw her betrayal changed everything, but it did not break me. Instead, it forged me into someone who understands the value of vigilance, patience, and self-worth. I had loved her, and she had lied, but I had survived and in surviving. I had learned that the only true revenge is reclaiming your own life from the hands of deceit.